How's it going, everybody? My name is Philip, and today we are jumping into some historical stuff. I remember when I first started, I really wanted to learn some history stuff and learn some new stuff because there's a lot of history that American school system didn't teach us here. So, I vaguely remember hearing about this, so I had to look it up. The mysterious dancing plague of 1518. I don't know anything about it other than people died by dancing. I don't know anything else other than that. They couldn't stop dancing or something like that, and they died because of it. So that's interesting. I mean, I'm curious what exactly might have happened. There's only an 11-minute, almost 12-minute video, so it's not super in depth as far as I'm aware. But I feel like it would get better to the point, maybe. I don't know. I just wanted to find a somewhat short video so I can kind of have a better understanding of what happened. And let me know some other moments in history. I have a tab over here that can help me find some stuff like the Great Emu War. I guess in 1932, Australian farmers went to war with emus. Okay. I mean, I'm sure it was pretty bad. I mean, there's a reason why it's called the Great Emu War, but it's not something I would have thought. The Dancing House of Prague, the Forgotten Female Samurai. Ooh, that actually might be kind of interesting. Just like people will tend to forget about the Black Samurai. I don't even know what his name is. I remember hearing stuff about it, and I'm just like, when they did the Assassin's Creed thing, and they have the Black Samurai, maybe they chose the wrong person or something. But I'm just like, there's literally an anime about a Black Samurai, an Afro Samurai. The Forgotten Pyramids of Sudan, the Great Molasses Flood, Female Computers of NASA. Okay, the Dog That Saved Antarctica. So there's a lot that I don't know anything about any of these. But I figured I'd start at number 1 with the Dancing Plague of 1518. So let's jump into it because it's very intriguing. So here we go.
There has been a strange epidemic lately going amongst the folk, so that many in their madness began dancing, which they kept up day and night without interruption until they fell unconscious.
Like, that is
Many
very
have
random.
died of it. This statement is from a manuscript held in the city archives in Strasbourg, in the Alsace region of France, in what was then the Holy Roman Empire. Now, my dancing is pretty terrible, but it's never actually killed anyone. Yet.
Oh,
what
yikes.
exactly happened in
What
Strasbourg
is that picture?
to allow people to dance until they die?
She's like having a
Let's
worse.
travel back in time.
Okay, I don't want to interrupt him, so I'm gonna pause him. That face makes it look like she's either in childbirth or she's taking a massive dump. Oh my gosh. So back a little
Exactly
bit.
happened in Strasbourg to allow people to dance until they died. Let's travel back in time and have a look at the mysterious dancing plague of 1518. Welcome to medieval madness.
Or someone's hand is in an awkward area.
Dancing Queen. It began on the 14th
I like that he
of
changed the
July,
music as well, but-
1518, a week before the Holy Festival of Mary Magdalene. It was a swelteringly hot summer, and Frau Trophia stepped out of her half-timbered home and began to dance. It wasn't the sort of joyful jig that was usually accompanied by music. It was more of a dance of jerky, uncontrolled movements, jumping from one foot to the other that
like
looked quite
ants
awkward
biting
and
her or
painful.
something?
Frau Trophia danced on throughout the day regardless of the pleas from her concerned husband that she should come home immediately. As the sun went down over Strasbourg, a crowd of bewildered onlookers gathered, and it was becoming obvious that Frau Trophia was unable to stop. Eventually, after several hours of the insane dancing, dripping in sweat and with her body still twitching, she collapsed from the sheer exhaustion and sank into a short, much-needed sleep. Then, only a few hours later, as the next day dawned, Frau Trophia resumed her peculiar jig, and after another weary sleep, she even continued dancing on into a third day.
That
By
is
now,
so
her
bizarre.
feet were bruised and bleeding, and the onset of chronic fatigue had made her movements more erratic and violent. The crowd of onlookers grew. Everyone around came to watch, from the poorest of dirty beggars in their rags to the noblest of lords with their lavish clothing and opulent jewels. And those witnessing the scene began to speculate as to what might be causing it. At first it was suspected that she was pretending, that it was all a trick to wind up her husband who hated dancing. The Swiss physician and chronicler Celsus speculated of her disobedience to her husband, and said she had been asked to do something that she did not want to immediately before she began to dance. Blood on the dance floor. Perhaps she was possessed, the people thought. Maybe her sins have weakened her and made her susceptible to the power of the devil. Women were thought to be more vulnerable to the forces of witchcraft in the 16th century because they were said to have a more lustful nature, making them weaker in both morals and in...
Wait, they had a more lustful nature? That's surprising coming from an era now where guys are very sexual. And I guess women have become a little bit more sexual. But I mean, it's just, it's kind of, yeah, it's completely different.
The mind. After 4 days, with her shoes blood-soaked from the gashes on her feet and her face a contortion of pain, it was decided that Frau Trophea was being punished by an unforgiving saint, whose grotto lay nearby. So she was unceremoniously shoved onto a wagon and driven to the shrine of St. Vitus up in the Vosges mountains, and her affliction became known as St. Vitus' dance. So bizarre was the spectacle that it was recorded at the time by several members of the community, which included local officials, preachers, and merchants. Within days, people were taking to the streets of Strasbourg with the same desperate need to dance, and it soon became clear that a crazed epidemic was developing. Within one month, it was said that 400 people had joined the bizarre dance party from all walks of life. Some in leather shoes, others in clogs, and even more just barefoot. Dancing with a demented fury, their arms and legs flying and their bodies ravaged by fatigue, people were starting to die. It is uncertain how many dropped dead, but one report states that there are up to 15 people dying every day. Dehydrated and exhausted through lack of food and water, they could not keep up that sort of exertion in the July heat. It was nearly the end of August before the epidemic finally began to abate, leaving the people of Strasbourg scared and confused, many of them grieving the loss of their loved ones.
That is very random.
Everybody...
Like, I was originally thinking maybe they were just, not twitching, having seizures, but, that's obviously completely different because they'd be on the ground. I don't know of any seizures that have them standing up and doing that, but... For also such a long period of time, it would I just don't know, really. The only thing I could think of is like if she was scratching everywhere and it looks like she was dancing, maybe that's what it was, right? And she's just scratching, and she has like whether it's chicken pox or something, and for some reason it just I don't know.
Dance now. It was not the first time that a dancing plague had been chronicled. In 1017, at the village of Kolbeek, in what is now Germany, several people danced up a storm in the graveyard. Legend has it that an outraged priest cursed them to dance for a whole year. It's unclear whether the story is based on a real event or just a parable to teach against the medieval sin of having a good time, which does seem to have been a thing. Another tale whose origins are just as vague was related by the historian known as Gerald of Wales. In 1188, he told of a religious ceremony that took place every year in St. Aldema's Church, South Wales. There, many people gathered in the churchyard to sing and dance until they would fall onto the ground. Then they began to perform, quote, whatever work they had unlawfully performed on weekdays. Some play-acted sewing, others working a loom or mending shoes. They looked as though they were in a trance as they tunelessly sang songs.
That is bizarre.
Coincidentally, the same wording used on a review for my one-man Carabée show. It was as though they were involved in some sort of ritual, and their strange actions have been attributed to the same thing that started the dancing hysteria of 1518. There is another case of spontaneous dancing in the German town of Erfurt in 1247. About 100 children danced and skipped their way out of the town to a nearby village.
What?
Once there, they collapsed on the streets and fell into a deep sleep.
That
They
is
were later
weird.
found by their distressed and bewildered parents, but it was too late for some of the children who had already died. Of those that were left, many were affected by fatigue and convulsions for the rest of their lives. Historians believe that this incident was a form of dancing plague because of the description of the ongoing symptoms. This event probably gave rise to the creepy legend of the Pied Piper of Hamelin, a town which was actually over 150 miles away from Erfurt. There, the citizens supposedly hired a piper to solve their rat infestation. He played his pipe, and the rats followed him away from the town. On successfully completing his work, the townsfolk refused to pay him, so he took his revenge. He played his magic pipe music, which sent all of the children from the town into a trance, and then he lured them away.
Not gonna lie, I did not realize that was part of the Pied Piper. I knew about the rats. I did not realize it also then moved to humans. I don't know a whole heck of a lot about fairy tales, apparently, then. So, interesting.
Into a cave, never to be seen again.
That's also very creepy.
One of many reasons to never leave your children alone near a flautist. Slightly after
mom
the
knows how
strange
to play the
occurrence
flute.
at Erfurt in 1278, the city of Maastricht, which is now in modern-day Holland, dancing onto a bridge over the River Moselle. Unsurprisingly, the medieval bridge collapsed, killing everyone. It was seen as a divine punishment by the church for the dance's disrespect. A much larger outbreak occurred in the late 14th century, covering an extensive area of the Rhineland, from Ghent and Aachen in the north to Marz and Strasbourg in the south. In the summer of 1374, groups of crazed dancers moved from town to town, spreading their dancing mania like it was a biological disease. Thousands were affected, dancing and screaming in pain, whilst calling to God and his saints for mercy. A strange fact that was recorded by witnesses reports that the dancers, quote, cried out like lunatics that they were dying if they did not have sheets tied tightly around their waists.
What? That's bizarre. Also, what is this a picture of? What is this? What is this creature? What is that? That's weird. Is that supposed to be a human? But okay.
Thought to be possessed by demons, many danced their way to a derelict chapel near Trier, where they made camp before resuming their furious dancing. Dancing in the dark. So,
I was just
how did
using
the uncontrolled
song
dancing
names?
of one woman become a full-blown epidemic? Could the dancers be deliberately inflicting pain upon themselves?
That face.
Was dancing until their feet bled and collapsing from sheer exhaustion a form of self-punishment, the same way in that the flagellants had whipped themselves during the Black Death many years earlier? After all, to be truly penitent involved pain and humiliating oneself before God. And what was the
Interesting.
reason for the strange phenomenon? The physicians believed that it was a physical disease which had occurred because of an overheating of the blood due to an imbalance of the humours. They ruled out any supernatural or astrological causes and decided that the best cure for the dancing was, drumroll please,
Music.
even more dancing. It was thought that the heavy sweating would help to expel the hot blood, regardless of the fact that people were having heart attacks and strokes through exhaustion and the heat of the sun. Famine had struck the region, and in the months before the dancing outbreak there was anxiety and a rise in superstitious beliefs as bad omens were seen everywhere. The price of grain shot up, and many poor families died of hunger. Then, in the spring, smallpox hit Strasbourg, followed by plague in the early summer and a mysterious sweating sickness in the later months. By early 1518, people were dead, frozen, and starved on the streets and in their homes. Those still alive pleaded with the clergy for more prayers and special masses in attempt to appease their obviously angry god. What other punishment would he send down next? With stress levels so very high, could the victims have been involved in a case of mass hysteria? Mass psychogenic
Most
illness,
likely.
or mass hysteria, is the spread of the physical symptoms of an illness without there actually being any real contagion. It usually occurs around people without a lot of power in times of extreme stress. A famous example of this was the Salem witch trials of 1692, which were thought to be caused by religiosity and
Which also, that's another thing I should look into. I vaguely remember hearing about this in school. I mean, I know that we were taught it, but I just don't remember. This is bad. But I kind of don't fully remember everything about that from school. I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention or what, but I kind of remember it, but not a lot.
And seclusion. And more recently, the Tanganyika laughter epidemic, which affected over 1,000 people in 1962 in Tanzania. This happened amongst students who were particularly stressed at the time because of especially high expectations from both their parents and teachers over exams. Some pupils fainted whilst others ran manically around the school, laughing and yelling.
I will say, I know that we kind of, nowadays, more modern time, I don't know if anyone remembers that like old Skype video where like people laugh and then people laugh and then people laugh and people are laughing because this person's laughing, and if you have a laugh like KSI, and you're gonna make other people laugh, and then at some point it's gonna be almost kind of contagious. You know what I mean? Where people continue to laugh, but I mean I feel like at some point you would stop, but I don't know.
When you consider how religiously extreme
they did
the
stop.
Eagles were,
They just died.
and how afraid they were because of the famine and pestilence that had recently ravaged their town, it could be that circumstances were just right for a case of mass psychogenic illness. After all, the people of Strasbourg seemed to be catching the dancing disease just by watching others who were suffering from it. It's difficult to imagine these people pushing through the pain threshold and dancing for days with their bloodied feet without them being in some form of altered state mentally. Another explanation popular amongst historians is that of ergot poisoning. Ergot is a mold that grows on damp rye stalks. When bread is consumed from flour contaminated with the fungus, it can induce hallucinations, a burning sensation in the extremities, and convulsions. The illness is named St. Anthony's Fire after the patron saint who offered treatment to its sufferers. But ergotism does not explain the rhythmic dancing that was described in the historical chronicles that went on for days. On the whole, there is compelling evidence that the medieval dancing plagues were in fact classic cases of mass psychosis brought on by years of tough living through fear, religious fervour, and anxiety. The dancing plague of 1518 was the last outbreak seen in Europe. Whatever the reason or cause, it remains one of the strangest occurrences in medieval times. Thank you for watching this episode of Medieval Madness. Do hope you've enjoyed it, and do remember to drink lots of water if you're out dancing.
Okay, so that I'm curious what doctors would try and boil it down to, really. You know, like I'm thinking maybe they all ate a lot of psychedelics. I don't know if a certain type of mold in the food or something would have that done to somebody. It's just with modern day knowledge. It's like it's kind of hard to boil it down to something, one particular thing. Well, they could have been they could have had seizures, but they were dancing, so it wasn't really seizures. It could have been this. Well, they blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It's bizarre, and it's interesting in a bizarre way, you know? So let me know what your guys' theories are in the comment section below. And also let me know some other historical things that I might not have known about that I should react to as well in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe for more content just like this, and I will see you guys next time.